God kind of put it on my spirit to make a few videos today. So earlier when I was writing down notes for my Bible study, to do my Walking with Jesus Bible study, I wrote down some ideas that God had put into my head. The other video I did, had to do with, a little mind blowing of Adam and Eve, and I just had just a small part of it that, how chakras are related to Adam and Eve, and that was pretty much it. But when it came to this one, it was different. I just told me to start writing, and I started writing, and literally I filled up the whole entire page. And that I was running out of room, that had to go sideways a little bit, because every single how it was worded is how it needs to be said. I can't just be flowing to it. I mean, I could probably add to it after I'm done reading, but this is when I was writing, this is what it was being said to me in my head. This wasn't just an idea. It just said, I need you to write this. Not saying that those were the exact words. I just knew to start writing, so I did. So this one is going to be a little different. I'm not just going to be sitting here speaking, from my mouth and stuff. This one I'm actually going to have to read to you, because this one's a serious note. It's heartbreaking a little bit, because just because of people in their situations, man. There's a lot of people going through some rough times, and there's a lot of people a lot more people that's going to start going through some more rough times. This is the end of times, and destruction is happening. People are not only losing their family members coming close to God, they just want to talk to them. They get into arguments about, is God real, and this and that. But with the natural disasters happen, people are losing their homes. There's with Satan taking kids' children. I mean, there's a lot of people losing their children, and it's all intent to try to make you curse God and make you mad at God, and it's bringing a lot of evil into this world. And so therefore, because all the evil negativity, man, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of sorrow in the world, and it's very heartbreaking. It's a tough subject to talk about, and people's feelings are just gone. And I've been through so much suffering throughout my whole entire life, and so I can relate. I can't relate to your exact feelings, because let me explain this. When it comes to you and your feelings, no feelings matter more than your feelings. And people can have the same situations, so to speak, and can understand because they've gone through similar situations. But no one can never, ever truly relate to what you're going through. And by that, I mean, just because I've been there, done that. No, let me explain something to you. The reason why nobody can never understand and can relate to your exact feelings when it comes to pain and sorrow is a simple fact, because each individual has led different lives. They've had certain things that's come throughout their lives, okay? There's going to be one person who ain't never had nothing happen to him, ever. And then that one thing will hit them. So it's going to hit them differently. It's going to hit them harder, because they haven't built up strength or a tough skin to deal with that. Whereas this person over here, who is going through the same thing that this person is, but they've already gone through several different things. So when that thing hit them, it's hitting them differently. Do you understand? So nobody can never really relate to what you're going through when you're going through any kind of pain, any kind of sorrow, any kind of suffering whatsoever, okay? And let me explain something to you. Here's another thing when it comes to pain and sorrow, okay? Nobody's story is less important than somebody else's story. And the reason why I say that is like, I have my husband killed. There's a lot of other people who lost their husbands. Now, I had people who lost their husbands that would talk to me and think that my story was more sadder than their stories, because, my husband was killed in Iraq, and whereas their husband might have died of a heart attack. How was mine sadder? I don't get that. But I get what they was trying to say, and I get where it was coming from. Maybe because he was older, and maybe that's expected of people of old age to have a heart attack. But it's not. Once the story doesn't matter of the pain or sorrow, because that's still your loss, and it's still my loss, and my loss isn't greater than your loss. It doesn't matter what the story is; it's still a loss. There's no level of like, oh man, you can't rate that. You can't rate pain whatsoever. And just because one person may have lost their home either through foreclosure, and then you had somebody who lost it through a fire or flood, doesn't mean that the person who lost it through being evicted is a lot worse than a fire, because they lost any and everything. They still lost their home. It can't be replaced. You know what I'm saying? They don't get, so it's not one's greater than the other. Yeah, to that one person see it coming when they're getting evicted. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. You know what I'm saying? So you can't really rate that. So let me get on to it before I run out of time and go ahead and read this. Okay? Because God says to find joy and to be grateful and everything. And so basically this is what this is about, with that being said. Okay? It's impossible almost to find joy or to be grateful in times of sorrow, pain, and suffering. Because joy and being grateful is the very opposite of pain, sorrow, and suffering. So why and how can we do these things? Because God commands it so. In scriptures, he says to be grateful in all things. It's hard to find these things, to be glad and to be thankful for. I guess the most common way to be glad in such things is the lessons and sufferings that we gain. Not only that, but we can find gladness in the fact that somebody has it worse than we do. But your mind is constantly weighted with heaviness throughout the day on the thoughts of the reality of it, which I believe makes you dwell on it and it makes you focus on it more, which simply, we can't help it. But we're supposed to be able to move forward and to get past it, even though it's hard to move on and get past it. And we find it hard to ignore the truth. Well, maybe we just need to be a little crazy. We need to be crazy in God. And by that I mean we need to picture God's creation. Okay? By just imagining what he has in heaven for us. Now, you imagine the most beautiful waterfalls, right? And how all the beautiful places in the world, if they're so beautiful here and everything is like 20 million times more beautiful in heaven, imagine what they look like in heaven. Imagine the waters, what it's going to be like in heaven. So lose your reality. Stay focused on what you're going to gain in heaven through your suffering. So that way you're not focused on your suffering. Because there's water there. It's going to be so beautiful. Are we going to walk on it? Are we going to even need boats? Are we just going to be able to walk on the water and just sit in the middle of the water and enjoy the beautiness of the water and the ocean, beloved? And we're going to be sitting there just on this water and just watching the dolphins. Are we going to be able to ride a shark? Because they say that all the animals are going to be up there. And we want just to get along with the dinosaurs. So imagine playing with a dinosaur. Imagine sitting there playing with all the tigers and the lions and all that stuff without having to worry about being scared or being harmed. Imagine having a castle made of jewels, diamonds, streets of gold. So if you can't seem to find joy in anything because it's very hard, maybe you just need to get out of the reality and stay focused on what you're going to get. Because you know what God says, to put your treasures in heaven and not of the things of this earth. Because everything on this earth is always temporary. That all life eternal is up in heaven. And everything that we're going to have in heaven is going to be for eternity. So if we can't stand what's going on in this reality of this world, that's not only going to be here temporary, then maybe we need to escape reality and be focused on the eternal life that we're going to have in heaven. And picture all the glorious things that we're going to have. Because he says when you suffer here on earth, the more you suffer, the more better things that you're going to have in heaven. So I know it's hard to find joy and sorrow and the loss of things. And remember, when you're going through the loss of other people, that when you're sitting there in heaven, they're going to be pretty much going to be made perfect and made whole. So just remember that when you want to be, just remember your loved ones, just how glorious they're going to look, and how you're going to be, and how perfect it is going to be with them. So if that's the only way you can make it through these hard times, then I encourage you to do so. Lose your mind. Go crazy. Ignore reality and stay focused on your treasures in heaven. Because that is pretty much somehow the only way you're going to be able to find joy and be grateful in the things of suffering. But God asks you to. And that's the quickest way to move on, is to be thankful. God bless.